Good morning to you, Facebook peeps. Welcome to the Find Your Soul show. This is Pip Coleman coming in live. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation about failing boldly and also weaving in that conversation about perfectionism or imperfectionism. We will be talking about that because it's very closely linked to being concerned about failing, as you can imagine. So say hey, say hello, let me know where you're coming in from. I am, this time hopefully I'll be able to see your comments, because the last few weeks I haven't been able to see the comments from on my phone. So I'm hoping that if I have my screen open, I'll be able to see your comments coming in live. So welcome everybody. I look forward to speaking to you when you do get online. One of the things that's been really interesting about this topic is that it brings up a lot of issues that we have around feeling vulnerable. And, you know, if you're failing, if you perceive yourself as failing, then you are showing your true self to the world. Or maybe you're hiding your true self by trying to cover up the fact that you've failed or made a mistake. So I really love the work of Brene Brown, who wrote the book The Gifts of Imperfection, which is this great, I don't know if you can see that, Gifts of Imperfection. And so I wanted to walk through a few little things about perfectionism that might help you to reframe making mistakes as well. So let's talk about the myths of perfectionism, because this is where I think that she really nails it in terms of describing, you know, as a recovering perfectionist and an aspiring good enoughist. That's what she calls herself, an aspiring good enoughist. I love it. Here's a couple of myths about perfectionism. So perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. Perfectionism is a belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize and avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. And I think that's really interesting to take note of. Perfectionism is a shield. It's a shield that minimizes the pain that we have around being blamed or judged or shamed. And it's so interesting because that really resonated with me when I read that. And the other thing is, perfectionism is not self-improvement. Perfectionism is at its core about trying to earn approval and acceptance. Most perfectionists are raised being praised for achievement and performance, grades, manners, rule following, people pleasing, appearance, and sports. Somewhere along the line, they adopt this dangerous and debilitating belief: I am what I accomplish and how well I accomplish it. In healthy striving, on the other hand, is self-focused. How can I improve? And perfectionism is other-focused, which is what will they think? So I'd love to hear your comments on that. Like, how do you feel? Do you have those thoughts? Do you have those thoughts of what will they think? And I'm pretty sure that most people in their lives have had that thought, what do they think? What is it that, people think of me? What do they, what are they doing in terms of watching me, judging me, criticizing me, that sort of thing? I'm pretty sure everybody has that feeling. What people who are having a healthy self-worth do that's different to the perfectionist is they actually think about they minimize the caring, and I say that carefully. They minimize the caring about what other people think, and they maximize the caring about what they feel about what they're doing. How do you feel about what you're doing? How does your body feel? How does your mind feel? How do you feel spiritually? What is it that you can improve? As Brene just said then, what is it that you can improve the next time that you do this activity? Or even in the moment, what is it that you could improve while you're in the moment? And that's what I find really interesting. So, as I say, feel free to comment. I'm still having trouble seeing people's comments. So just say hey when you join and we'll go from there. We'll see how we go. So those are the two myths around perfectionism, and making mistakes is all part of that illusion that we create around being perfect. Because if we're perfect, then we can't be judged. If we're perfect, then we can't be shamed. If we're perfect, then we can't be criticized. And we get the benefits of what we perceive as the benefits of love and affection, attention and praise, and all those things that make us feel good in a different way. But a lot of the times, and a lot of you will probably resonate with this, when you actually are doing those sorts of activities for the praise of others, if people don't recognize or see that that's what you've been doing, you can then get resentful, right? So when we're overgiving, when we're doing that sort of need to achieve thing, we can get caught up in we overgive, then we feel resentful. We overgive, then we feel frustrated. We overgive, and then we feel rejected because other people don't have the same perception about what we're doing, and might not necessarily think that you need to be, confirmed or acknowledged for what you've been doing. So that's really interesting as well. So the other thing that I really liked in Brene's book, where she was talking about, by the way, we're on page 57. If you're looking at the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, the chapter is actually called Cultivating Self-Compassion, Letting Go of Perfectionism. And I thought that was really cool because it ties in really beautifully with what we've been talking about failing. So, because if you can reframe the concept of being perfect, then whenever you do have a lesson or a mistake, as you might call it, then you can actually move through life being more kind to yourself and having more self-compassion. So I'm going to do a tapping mini meditation with you at the end of our session today to take you through the letting go, honouring and releasing that perfectionism, and embracing the self-compassion. So we'll be doing that towards the end. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss your experience of perfectionism and how it makes you feel. Like, do you actually get what you want out of being perfect, out of trying to be perfect? What is it that you're getting out of your perfectionistic tendencies? So here's a definition that Brene gives us around perfectionism, and then we'll go on to self-compassion. So perfectionism is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect, live perfectly, and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame, which is what we were talking about with that myth before, the myth about perfectionism. If you're perfect, then you won't get shamed, you won't be judged, you won't be blamed. Perfectionism is self-destructive simply because there is no such thing as perfect. Perfectionism is an unattainable goal. Additionally, perfectionism is more about perception. We want to be perceived as perfect. And again, this is unattainable because there's no way to control perception of other people, regardless of how much time and energy you spend trying. And isn't that so true? Like, you can spend all your life trying to be as perfect as you possibly can, and you can't control what other people perceive you doing. And that's so interesting, isn't it? That whole concept of, here we are trying, busting our ass, to be perfect and to do the right thing. And other people might go, well, that's not what I see as perfect. And I remember, it's taken a little while, but I remember as a younger person, as a child, as a teenager, trying to be perfect, trying to be the best friend that I could possibly be, trying to, in school, in high school in particular, when you're trying to fit in with the in crowd or whatever group you're trying to be involved in. And for some reason, I couldn't stay in one group. It was always, I was hopping from group to group to group, and each different group would have different rules about what was perfect and how to be in that group. And I remember being really, frustrated at the time that I couldn't fit in with any group. I felt like I didn't fit with any group because I couldn't be perfectly what each person or each group wanted me to be. And so that was really interesting. And one of the things that I had learnt as a part of my family was that it was more important that I liked myself than it was if other people liked me. But I still was sort of involved in that peer pressure of, wanting people to like me, even though that was part of my upbringing, was to care more about myself, how I feel about myself, than how other people feel. There was still a level of wanting to be accepted, which is normal. That's normal. But it's taken a while for me to get to the point where I now realise that during those high school periods, yes, I was going and hopping to the different groups, but the reason why I left each of those groups was not because necessarily they rejected me. It was because I actually decided myself, this group doesn't fit. I don't fit with this group doesn't fit with me. And so in the end, the decision to leave the group was mine, not necessarily. Sometimes it was theirs as well. But I realised that I was actually making that choice for myself and perhaps leaving before I was rejected, which is interesting because that is part of that perfectionist mindset. So that's interesting to take note of. Are you leaving a situation before you get rejected so that you don't get rejected? So then that's part of perfectionism as well. So another thing is perfectionism can be addictive because we invariably do experience shame, judgment, and blame, because that's life. And we often believe it's because we weren't perfect enough. So rather than questioning the faulty logic of perfectionism, we become entrenched in that quest to live and look and do everything best. So that I am not enough belief is so interesting, because if you're thinking I'm not enough, it's potentially because in the background you've got that perfectionism belief. You believe that instead of actually getting rid of the perfectionism belief, you believe I'm not enough, and you kind of move down that path of lack of self-worth and not being compassionate to yourself. So that's really interesting, and to recognise that it's actually a faulty logic that we can change, rather than actually that you are not enough. Does that make sense? So yes, feel free to give me a thumbs up if you're out there. I can't see any comments at the moment, but I will go back and comment later if you have actually made comments. So the other thing is feeling shamed, judged, and blamed, and the fear of these feelings are the realities of human experience. That's just how life is. People are going to judge because that's just how human beings are. People are going to blame because that's just how human beings are. So perfectionism actually increases the odds that we'll experience these painful emotions, and it often leads to self-blame. It's my fault. I'm feeling this way because I'm not good enough, you see? So that I'm not good enough belief is coming up in that space as well. So let's talk a little bit about self-compassion. So if you are feeling like you're a bit of a perfectionist and you're wanting to shift that feeling because it's not serving you anymore, then the antidote to perfectionism is self-compassion. And isn't that just, a beautiful irony, I guess, is the more that we're trying to get love and affection from other people, the more that we actually need to be spending giving love and affection to ourselves. So, good morning, Kerry. How you going? Hi, Sarah Jane. That's good. I can see your comments. That means that there is actually internet. That's good. So let's talk about self-compassion, because there's a wonderful lady called Kristen Neff, Neff. And Kristen is a doctor, a researcher, a professor at the University of Texas in Austin, and she has done some amazing work on self-compassion. She's actually written a book too, and which I can't remember exactly the title of it, but she runs the Self-Compassion Research Lab in that University of Texas. And so she's done a whole bunch of research around self-compassion, and she says that that there are 3 elements to self-compassion, and these are the antidotes to perfectionism and that belief, I am not enough, and will help you to reframe feeling like you've made mistakes as well. So we're moving into that, the antidote to being afraid of failure, being afraid of not being perfect, is self-compassion. So the 3 things: self-kindness is the first thing, which is obviously being warm and understanding. When we suffer and fail and feel inadequate, rather than ignoring the pain or flagellating yourself with self-criticism. So self-kindness is really, really important in terms of, that's like, number 1 is that self-kindness, and not doing that self-flagellation, that self-criticism. Being aware when you're starting to do it, that self-talk that we have, is when we're suffering, to be self-kind. Second thing is common humanity. So common humanity recognises that suffering and the feelings of personal inadequacy are part of the shared human experience. So something that we all go through rather than what happens alone. So a lot of the time, it's so funny when I'm working with my coaching clients, they say to me, how did you know that this is how I was feeling? Or how did you know that this exercise was going to be exactly what I needed? That means that I'm not the only one. If you've created an exercise or a questionnaire or a process that will help me, that means I'm not the only one. And that recognition that everybody goes through these experiences is really helpful, because when we have a shared, that common feeling of humanity, you can actually bring yourself into a space of, it's not just me. I am actually okay because everyone else is feeling the same way. So that's really important. So we've got self-kindness, and then we have common humanity. And then the third thing that Dr. Kristen Neff says is that we need to have mindfulness. So, and her version of mindfulness is taking a balanced approach to negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. We cannot ignore our pain and feel compassion for it at the same time. So you can't ignore your pain and feel compassion at the same time. That's 2 contradictory things. So mindfulness requires that we don't over-identify with thoughts and feelings, and so that we don't get caught up and swept away in the negativity. So that's really important. Mindfulness is really important, and that's why I do my meditation sessions with people, with the classes. That's why I do enjoy doing the tapping, the EFT tapping, because It brings us into that space of mindfulness and reminds us of where we are right now in the present moment. And being as present as you possibly can is so important when we're talking about that whole rabbit hole that, you know, people talk about going down the rabbit hole of thoughts. When we are mindful, we don't go down that rabbit hole as easily, because going down the rabbit hole means that you're actually losing, you're letting your thoughts run away from you, and you're starting to worry about the future, or you're beating yourself up about the past. So that's where mindfulness is super important. So I think that's really important to take note in that moment. So those three things are really important. So what the tapping little meditation that I'm going to do with you today is focusing on bringing yourself to a space of self-compassion and being inspired about that and being mindful about that. So let's do it. So if you just joined me, say hello. Hi, Nicole. Welcome. And Kerry, you're back. I keep coming in and out. That's great. So you've joined us at the perfect time. If you've just joined us now, we're about to do a little tapping mini meditation around releasing and letting go of perfectionism and bringing in that energy of self-compassion and mindfulness in the moment, in common humanity. So if you've not done any tapping before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this as a tapping meditation. So when we close our eyes and do this, you can watch me if you want for the first round, but basically we're going to tap on the meridian points of the face and the body, and I'll tell you where to tap each time. So if you're familiar with tapping, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you where to tap anyway, so that's okay. So let's tap on the karate chop point first, and let's just do a setup statement and see how much of a perfectionist we are at the moment. So out of 10, give yourself a rating out of 10. How much of a perfectionist are you? Are you a full-on perfectionist? Do you 10 out of 10, you're constantly thinking, I'm not enough? Are you always, thinking about what people think of you, and you're worried about, getting acknowledgement and praise, and you're always kind of, hustling? 10 out of 10. That'd be 10 out of 10. If you're not so much of a perfectionist, that's okay. You can still do this exercise. So give yourself a rating out of 10, and then we can begin. So we're tapping on the karate chop point, and we're going to just say out loud, just repeating after me, even though I worry about what people think, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though I constantly think that I'm not enough, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though I worry about what people think, and I think that I'm not enough, and I do this all the time, I accept myself and how I feel. Let's tap through the points. If I look perfect and live perfectly and do everything perfectly, side of the eye, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. Underneath the eye. But is that really true? Under the nose. It's my fault. I'm feeling this way because I'm not good enough. Chin. Is that really true? Collarbone. Perform, please, perfect. What will they think? Under the arm. Is that really helping me to think this way? Top of the head. If I live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, I can minimize the pain, blame, judgment, and shame. Let's go back to the eyebrow point. Perfectionism never happens in a vacuum. Side of the eye. It touches everyone around me. Under the eye. I pass it down to my children. Under the nose. I infect my workplace with impossible expectations. Chin. It's suffocating for my friends and family. Collarbone. How does that make me feel? Under the arm. Knowing that truth. Top of the head. Perfectionism is really not helping me or serving me. Let's go to the eyebrow point. How can I change that truth? Side of the eye. Thankfully, compassion also spreads quickly. Under the eye. When I'm kind to myself. Under the nose. When I create a reservoir of compassion. Chin. When I see that I'm not alone. Collarbone. When I extend that compassion to others around me. Under the arm. My children learn how to be self-compassionate by watching me. Top of the head. The people around me feel free to be authentic and connected. So, eyebrow. When I learn to be self-compassionate, side of the eye, I feel free to be authentic and connected. Under the eye. Self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness are my keys to self-compassion. Under the nose. Self-kindness needs my constant attention. Chin. Most of us are trying to live an authentic life. collarbone, deep down. I want to take off my game face and be real and imperfect. Under the arm. Remember, when you get to that place where you're trying to control everything and make it perfect, top of the head, remember there is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. Eyebrow. We're running around, spackling all of the cracks. Side of the eye, trying to make everything look right. Under the eye, remember the beauty of the cracks. Under the nose, and the messy house. Chin, and the imperfect manuscript. Collarbone, and the too tight jeans. Under the arm. Remind yourself that your imperfections are not inadequacies. Top of the head. They are reminders that we're all in this together. Imperfectly together. And take a nice deep breath. And put your hands on your heart and take another deep breath. And remember today to be kind to yourself, to remember that we're all in this together, and to be mindful as often as you can. There are no failures. All is well, and so it is. And when you're ready, coming back into your space, opening your eyes, take a note of where you are out of 10 now. Even if you've just gone down by 1 point, that's a shift. That's a change. And you can always listen to this video again, or the audio. You could go to my podcast and listen to it as an audio. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please feel free to comment below what your number was when you started the tapping and what your number was at the end. Always lovely to join you on this show. Glad you liked it, Nicole. That's great. Let me know what your number was. It's really helpful for us to see when we shift, to be aware when we move from a high level of stress to a low level. Excellent. Excellent. Starting at 8 and going down to less than 5, that's amazing. And if you do the tapping again, you'll find that will shift again down a bit lower as well. And if you'd like any more tapping, obviously, if anyone wants any more assistance, you can always get in touch with me to talk more about individual coaching, or if you would like to go a little deeper, that would be amazing to have a chat to you. To talk to another like-minded soul is always fun, and I love being here with you. That's fantastic, Nicole. I love that that you actually got something out of this today, and I hope you did too, Kerry. I'm not sure if you're still there. Anyway, lovely to see you all. Take good care. That's great, Nicole. Fantastic. Fantastic. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's if you're always at that sort of high level of, perfectionism, then it's really cool that you're aware of it, and then you can start to do something about it. Once you actually realize that you're working on a false premise, you can start to change that. So that's fantastic. Wow, I love it. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. This is Pip Coleman. Feel free to get in touch if you would like to have more of a chat with me. And I will see you next week for our last conversation of the month of June about perfectionism and failing boldly. That's what we're talking about this month. I will talk to you soon. Thank you and bye for now.